Welcome to Marlo Monday. This is your host, Steve Reynolds, and I'm sitting in Jimmy Nuzzo's house outside of Chicago, and we've been doing card tricks for the last 2 days and talking about Marlo, and I thought it'd be nice to have him on the show. And here he is, Jimmy Nuzzo. Jimmy, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm having a great time with you.
We've had a great weekend.
Yeah.
Did a couple card tricks.
Yeah, a few, yeah. So I wanted to ask you a few things. Normally you ask the usual questions to begin. How did you get involved with magic, and particularly, how did that lead you to meet Marlo?
I was probably around 10 years old, and my member of my family gave me a trick. Many of you, of course, will know, especially if you're old enough, called color vision.
Oh, yeah, color vision.
A little box with the colored squares. And so I started doing this trick, and I thought, well, it's kind of interesting. And so I started to pursue doing some more magic, and I bought a magic book and learned the coin trick. And as I got older, I would frequent the magic shops, and I joined the Mazda Mystic Ring, which was a magic club in Oak Park, and I was maybe about 14 at that time. And I was about 16 or 17, and wandering in and out of magic shops, I went into the treasure chest on Randolph Street in downtown Chicago, and there was this man behind the counter. And he says, "Say, kid," he says, "do you do magic?" I said, "Yeah, I'm interested in it. Do a few tricks." And he said, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I do the color vision." So he said, "Well, do it for me." So I did it for him. And he said, "Let me take a look at that little box." And all of a sudden, this guy started doing all kinds of things with the color vision box that I never dreamed of or imagined. So it was quite an experience. And after I met him and went in there for a few weeks, and I realized how good he was, I said, "Gee, could I take a magic lesson from you?" And that exactly did happen. I went to his home, and I was maybe 17, 18 years old, took some lessons from him. And from that, a friendship grew, which lasted over 30 years. And he became my mentor. And actually, Marlo and I were closest friends. I was his closest friend for many, many years. And we became such good friends that sometimes, many times, we would get together, and he liked to go to the movies. We'd go to the movies, or go out to have something to eat. And there were times when we did little or no magic.
That doesn't seem... That goes counter to what people... I always thought Marlo was on 24 hours cards.
Well, if you... it wouldn't take much to get involved. But there were times when we just had a nice... and our families became intertwined, and he came to, graduations and family events, and to my home with Muriel, and we went out to dinner and times with the wives. And so the venue always wasn't conducive to magic.
Right.
But I will say that 99% of the time, that's all we were doing. So it was a great learning experience for me. And
so when you first started, when you went to his home the first time, what year was that around? Late 50s or
I would say early 60s.
Early 60s.
Yeah, maybe 19.
So you got Marlo like in his prime, right? When he was really on top of his game.
Oh yeah.
That must have been exciting. So what was it like to sit with Marlo in a session and watching him do his thing?
Well, he was very...
How did he conduct a session like that?
He was very introspective, and you could see that he had genius, because his focus was so much on the magic that he was doing, and perhaps the technique, and perhaps and always the presentation. And he was always mindful that you were going to perform this. So he was very mindful about the layman. He just wasn't a technician.
Right.
He
So
was
when
also
you're saying when he created a trick or constructed a trick, he had layman in mind.
Absolutely.
That's fascinating. And you know, for me, that I never met Marlo, but when I study his work, I see that there's glimmers of real magic in there, performable magic. And I try to stress that a lot of people think that he was just a technician and his stuff was boring. What was it like to watch a Marlo effect? And
it was great. He would often share with me, because I was so close to him, and he would show me a lot of things that he was working on, or were actually in the infancy of being developed by him.
Oh, right.
And so I got to see a lot of that.
So you got to see method 1, and then you got to read method 12.
That's exactly. It was kind of an interesting evolution. He was very, as we all know, he was extremely productive and dedicated and interested in what he was doing. And that was something that he lived for.
Right. Now I see that when you perform, you do many other things besides cards. I see you have some rope. I saw egg bag. Marlo, of course, thought about all kinds of magic. Is that right?
Absolutely. He did the linking rings. We worked on that together sometimes for a couple of years. He did cups and balls, chop cup, coin routines. Coin and the pencil routine, which is one I have that's never been published.
Oh, nice.
And he was interested in all kinds of magic and presentation, and very prolific thinker.
Mm. So, but cards were obviously the main focus. I mean, do you remember the first trick that he showed you outside of the magic shop? Do you remember the first card effect he might have showed you when you were?
Some of the first things that Marlo started to teach me were basic things, like the pass. He taught me about using a crimp, a bridge. He taught me a few tricks that I still use to this day from the very first lesson, like the fingerprint trick, for example.
Right.
And
so he really taught you. He wasn't just there to blow your mind and make you.
Oh no.
He wanted you to learn, is what you're saying.
And he would say to me, you know, the biggest kick I got out of it is he was such a purist, and I got such a kick out of it. He would show me Marlo and I had in common a love for a difficult sleight of hand, and so we naturally. Marlo was the kind of guy, if you were a guy that liked a certain kind of magic, he would accommodate how smart he was and how much he knew. So naturally, if you were a sleight of hand guy, in quotes, you know, you liked difficult sleights. In my case, that was true, and he spent a lot of time with me, teaching me things in that category. One thing that stands out in my mind was he taught me something that took quite a bit of work to perfect. And after I had accomplished that, I said, "Gee, I want to show you what I've done with this so far." I showed it to him, and he looked at it and he says, "You know, that's pretty good, kid." He says, "Do it again." I says, "You taught it to me."
Right. So it's more like he thought that was what a clever idea.
No, not really. He knew what it was, but he liked the way it looked.
Right.
See, so then he wanted to see it again. Just Right. So he was very much in love with magic and the things that he did. And in my particular case, of course, he had a lot of friends and contacts in magic, as you can well imagine.
Yeah.
And my particular privilege was I was truly his friend. All right. Another favorite Marlo effect of mine, which he was instrumental into bringing into magic in a reproducible way. I'd like you to pick another card. Say stop for me.
Stop.
Can you see that card?
Yep.
Now you could have said stop anywhere in the pack, right?
Yep.
But in your case, you said stop at the only one that's face up.
How'd that happen?